Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Jay Fields, who's a Somatic coach and author of LinkedIn courses. Jay, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here with you.
Hey, so I want to talk all about what you do and how you do it and why you do it. But first, start us off with what in the world is a somatic coach? Because authority positioning coach, we can kind of guess or surmise, okay, but somatic, go.
Yeah, soma. Soma is a Greek word for body. So somatic coach means my work really includes the person from the neck down. And the recognition that if you're going to do any work in terms of changing behavior or transforming, you have to include the whole self, not just the mind.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that we'll have a fun conversation talking all throughout that because, as we know, body, mind, spirit, and we're all connected. And if you even think about personally and professionally, if you have a bad day personally and then go into work, it's going to carry over. Or if you have a bad day professionally, you're going to bring it home. So I think there's so many integrations that way. But before we jump into that, give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point in your career.
Yeah, well, I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. I never had a job. I definitely valued having freedom of time and schedule, and I've always been an integrator of ideas. I like learning lots of things and pulling them together and going, wonder what it would look like if I did this, this, and this. Yeah. So with that, my path has been very wandery. I started as a yoga teacher, and I was a yoga teacher for 20 years, and that's where I really came alive to this, what you were just saying, the body, mind, spirit, and the integration of those things and what's possible in terms of really knowing ourselves on a deeper level when we can quietly access our inner landscape. So I was a yoga teacher, and at the same time, I was also into the outer landscapes, and I was taking people out backpacking and rock climbing and working with kids, adjudicated youth in the wilderness setting. So I've been really an experiential educator my entire career. And after about 10 years of, like the yoga and working with people in the outdoors, I really wanted to learn more about what's going on in terms of the brain physiology, in terms of the nervous system. So I started studying more about neurobiology and trauma-informed work. And I also started doing more therapeutic modalities as well in terms of, understanding psychological development. And I pulled all those things together so that when I was about 30, I wrote a book called Teaching People Not Poses. And that was all about how to be a human and an expert yoga teacher. Because that's what I knew at that time, right? And then yoga teachers started coming to me asking me to coach them. And when that was working for them, they started telling their sisters and their brothers and their friends who weren't yoga teachers, hey, this woman's really helping me show up more authentically in my work and in my relationships. And my coaching practice evolved from there and turned into doing more corporate work and trainings around how to manage your emotions and how to regulate your nervous system. Because going back to what you just said, Mike, just because I go to work doesn't mean I stop being a person.
Yeah.
There's the rub, right? So that's kind of the trajectory of my work. And now I really focus my work in a one-on-one and group coaching business where I help people use the foundations of knowing how to manage emotions and regulate their nervous system to like who they are in the relationships that matter to them the most. I mean, that's kind of the fundamentals of it.
It's so neat because what you just said there made me think of a couple or a bunch of ideas, but we'll start with one. But it's kind of like in graduate school, I did my MBA in marketing, and the one class that I hated the most was corporate finance because I didn't want numbers. I didn't want, accounting or numbers or anything like that. But you have to know not just the numbers, but what the numbers mean and then what to do with them. Well, like you mentioned about, yoga or poses. Okay, here's this pose, but what? I mean, and even somebody was saying just the other day to me that in school they took Spanish as a foreign language and they knew how to pronounce and say certain words and they could read it, but they had no idea what they were saying. So there's a big difference between knowing and understanding what to do with that, whatever that it is, yoga or business or leadership or anything like that. So I think that's a big mindset shift that people need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. It's something I talk about all the time in my work, going back to that soma and body. The other word that I use all the time that people don't necessarily know in the mainstream yet is embodied, as in embodied learning or embodied knowing. And that is exactly what you were just speaking to. It's different to conceptually understand something than it is to have an embodied knowledge, which is to say you live it, I mean, to go back to the yoga example, I was practicing all the time and, the whole idea with yoga is it helps you be more calm. It helps you be a better person. Well, I was still a mess in my relationships. I could be calm and cool and collected on my yoga mat, but I wasn't finding the translation in that idea is, you really know your practices like that, whether it's meditation or karate or, you really know those practices are working when you become better in your relationships. And I wasn't finding that translation because it was still, I was moving through the motions, not understanding all the integrated aspects of it.
Have you ever heard this before? It's like someone that's talking about the fact that they have 10 years of experience in whatever that it is. And the mindset shift is, do you have 1 year of experience 10 times over, or do you actually have 10 years of experience? Right? Like year one, you got this experience, then you built off of it and went to the next level year two, and then you learned all of that and took it to the next level year 3, 4, 5, and so on. And too many times people just mentally check out and they've got 1 year of experience 10 times over, and that's not worth talking about.
Such a great point. Such a great point. And so much of what is out there, and especially in the space of coaching, I think when people come to me in my practice, oftentimes the people I'm coaching are other entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, and they're saying, what do I need to know in order to move into this space? And I say, it isn't about what your website looks like or any of that. It's about, can someone feel you? Yep. And do they get through how they feel you that you've done the work?
Yep. It's like Malcolm Gladwell's, 10,000 hours. It's like at some point, 1,000 hours in or 5,000 hours in, at some point something hopefully clicks, and it's like I'm getting better and better and better. And I'm a big quote kind of person, and it's you think about practice makes perfect. I agree. Perfect practice makes perfect, because if you practice something the wrong way, that becomes an ingrained rut, and then now you're perfectly incorrect.
Right, that's true. And to add to that, one of my favorite quotes is, instead of fake it till you make it, it's practice it until you embody it.
Cool. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, think about this too. You think about, your unique selling proposition, or as an entrepreneur, what's your elevator pitch? Well, if someone says, what do you do? And you go, I'm and fill in the blank, typically that doesn't say much. And in fact, it could give the wrong impression. So when you have a vibrant, elevator pitch, unique selling proposition, you need to embody it and know it so well that you go, how a lot of people struggle with? Yeah. Well, what I do is I help them, and you need to have that just down and embodied. And that comes with practice and practicing the right way. And all of that comes together.
You get it. I mean, because as you say that, can you feel the difference between performing something from your face and your head, saying something, and actually saying something from your gut, where you can feel your legs and you can feel your feet on the ground? Because I know when I'm stumbling, it's because I'm coming from my head.
And, have you ever done any reading with Napoleon Hill, the Think and Grow Rich?
Not very much. No, I'm familiar with it, but.
Well, one of his teachings in that book is one of the powerful, aspects of being successful is enthusiasm. Well, if you're enthusiastic about something, then maybe you are grounded and maybe you're embodying that thing because you've learned it and you've focused on it and you've studied it. And I think it just all ties together. You talk about in your teachings and your website to leverage your body, brain, and nervous system to be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about integrating the nervous system so that you can be more successful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about wanting to be on our growth edge or, make it to that next level in our business, our minds might be into that. Our nervous system might not be, which is to say the autonomic nervous system's job is to detect whether or not our life is in danger or threatened.
Yeah.
It's there to keep us alive. So as far as our nervous system is concerned, if what you've done in your life up until now has kept you alive, you're good. You don't need to do more. You don't need to take that next step. So oftentimes pushing yourself or creating growth creates a stress response in your nervous system. And that happens underneath the level of consciousness. It's the same way that if you see a bear out in the woods, you're automatically going to have a response, a reaction, right? It's about life saving. You don't think about it and you don't stop and go, oh, I wonder what kind of bear that is. I wonder where its house is. I wonder, it's like you get out of there. And so if you don't know how to work consciously with what the nervous system will do unconsciously, it is one of the biggest things that trips us up and gets us in our own way.
Yes. So let's, I know you can spend, months and months on that concept of how to get the nervous system in line with achieving your goals. But what is one or two things that are key points that people don't understand? And once they understand it, they go, ooh, that's interesting. And I could do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, conceptually, I think one of the key points is understanding what's called polyvagal theory. And I won't get into it in depth. If you want more depth, you can check it out in my LinkedIn learning course on regulating your nervous system to manage stress. But the idea behind this is that, we used to understand that the nervous system had two major functions. And one would be that kind of fight flight. And the other would be that more the shutdown or rest response. And in the 70s, a guy came along named Dr. Stephen Porges, and he discovered that there's a third major function, and that's social engagement. And social engagement is what our nervous system, the state it's in when we feel safe, when we don't see a bear, when we're around our loved ones, when we're at home feeling okay in ourselves. And that state is what allows us as humans to get into spaces of creativity and collaboration and possibility and everything you need to be a great entrepreneur. So being able to detect what those different states look like, one is called essentially mobilized. That's where you're in that heart racing, you're breathing fast, you're thinking fast, you're talking fast, you're doing 6 things at once. That's that mobilized kind of fight, flee. And then the other state is immobilized. That's the state where you're, binge watching Netflix and eating chips and you don't want to talk to anybody. It's the turtle in the shell. So if you start to recognize, okay, I've got social engagement. That's how I am when I'm feeling good. I've got this mobilized, which is where I get when I'm in that, go, go, go mode and busy. And I've got this immobilized, which is where I go when I'm burned out, I'm shut down. I've had too many of those days where I just need to kind of disconnect. If you can identify those 3 states in yourself and know that they are about your nervous system, not about your personality, that can start changing behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it makes me think, maybe I'm off base, but it's like the old, what was it? The movie with Robin Williams in it and Matt Damon.
Good Will Hunting?
Yes, Good Will Hunting. And I remember the scene where it's like, it's not your fault. And all of a sudden that was his breakthrough. And it's like, wow, maybe I was placing all my blame on this, but maybe there's other things, and it kind of is liberating to go, maybe there's more. And so maybe there's more in success or entrepreneurship or whatever. So that's kind of an interesting realization.
Yeah, I love that scene. It makes me cry every single time. But yeah, it's very much that, because when I work with clients who tend to more immobilize, it's really easy for them to think I'm lazy and unmotivated. Or when I work with clients who are really in a mobilized state, it's really easy for them to think like I'm short-tempered and kind of jerky.
Yeah.
But that's not your personality. It's how your behavior is being influenced by what your physiology is telling you need to do to survive. And if you're in that survival mode, you don't make the most strategic and grounded decisions for your business.
Because you're reacting, not responding, or not planning strategically.
Exactly.
And as an entrepreneur, we have to be proactive or strategic or, regimented in a lot of things. So let's wrap up with this conversation with talking about how do you advise an entrepreneur to be more aware of how to put these aspects into place? Because I think that an outworking would be, I think of entrepreneur and making a sale, right? And overcoming objections. And you might think when someone says something, it's like this big wall and you jump to a conclusion and then it turns out like, oh, well, all they were doing is asking this and they weren't really. So I think there's some things that if we could kind of like be aware and go, oh, well, maybe they're just, so let me just ask a clarifying question. So how does that all tie together?
Well, what I hear and what you're asking is what are some things that we can do, like infuse in our day to kind of start integrating this idea of bringing my nervous system along with me in my entrepreneurship. Is that correct?
Yeah. The benefit in the business world, because I think that a lot of times people might go, oh, well, relationships, and they immediately go, oh, my personal, my, marriage, my, fun life. But an entrepreneur has relationships that they are dealing with vendors, with prospects, with clients, with strategic alliances.
Well, what I tell my clients all the time is develop a practice of looking at what's happening from your neck down. You just have that big conversation or you're about to go into a conversation with a potential client. Notice what's happening. Are you shaky? Are you cold? Are you amped up? Are you feeling heavy, and use your awareness of that to either, shake your arms a little bit, jump up and down, feel your feet on the ground, wiggle your toes in your shoes, like access something that in your body that is not the sensation that might be causing nerves or might be causing a sense of wanting to withdraw, and give yourself a sense of, even if it's as simple as feel your feet on the ground, feel your legs as a strong sense of support. It doesn't mean that you're no longer nervous. It means that there's another layer of your experience that is solid and supported, and that will send a message to your brain that you're not in danger. Your brain will go, oh, I've got support, and it will change how you speak. It will change the tone in your voice. It will change how creative you can be, how much you can pivot on the dot for what they need. Just being able to look at how can I use my body in this moment to give me a sense of groundedness and support, as opposed to I'm going to come at this really smart from my head.
Yeah, that's a really good. That to me, that is something where you should take action. You should create momentum. All of these things, be decisive, but not too fast, because you could be reacting to something, not responding in the right frame of mind.
Yes, and if you're not listening to the signals that come from your body, you will usually override those gut knowings of like, ooh, I'm pushing into this, or I'm holding back. And that kind of knowing doesn't come from your head. It comes from having a relationship with the sensations in your body.
Yes. Excellent. Well, let's kind of wrap up here and think about something, Jay. What if someone is listening to this going, as an entrepreneur, I need to make sure that I'm integrated fully, body, mind, spirit. What's the best way someone can learn more about your teachings, your book, and your group and coaching?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website, which is j-fields.com. So jay-fields.com. And on that, you can have access to my LinkedIn learning courses, which are directly related to how you show up at work. And you can also learn more about my one-on-one and group coaching.
Excellent. Well, Jay, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.